Sometimes when I am preparing for a sermon, I am taken in by some of the insights that come from one or a couple of texts. Sometimes, on the other hand, I am grasped by the relationship between the texts, the readings that we have for the day. And today is one of those latter sometimes. In some ways, what we receive from Paul in 1 Corinthians, the lesson that Paula talked about, what he talks about, love, seems so different than what we get in the first and the gospel readings. Although it wasn't his intention, Paul makes you almost feel a little mushy, a little gushy, when he speaks about love lasting forever, love being patient and kind and not envious. You do not feel particularly gushy or mushy when you confront the boy Jeremiah being called to pull up and pluck up, to destroy and to overthrow. And you don't also feel particularly gushy when you're told that the hometown crowd wants to throw Jesus off the cliff. I mean, I know that being back with the family and others who have known you from your youth isn't always what it's cracked up to be, but throw him off of the cliff in order to do what they wanted to do, which is to stone him. You know, it never got that bad back in Green Hills and Mount Healthy where I came from. And I hope it won't get that bad when I go back there. I think that the relationship of these texts is very telling, and we need to pay attention to that relationship. In many ways, these texts are like a sandwich to me. You got two pieces of bread that are really quite similar, and then the meat in the middle, which of course is very different in substance and in taste from the bread. The meat in the middle is at the heart of the sandwich, and in many ways, especially if you're not a vegetarian, makes or breaks the sandwich. If you are a vegetarian, I'm going to include you today by want you to think of the middle as a part of a portobello mushroom sandwich, all right? At the heart of the Christian message, its center, its meat, its portobello mushroom, is this love that Paul is talking about. It's the only thing that is eternal. It is the thing that never ends. It even outlives that which is long-living and life-giving, faith and hope. You see, faith eventually will become sight, according to Paul. Hope eventually will become fulfillment. They won't last. But love's the only thing that will. Love is the final word. When everything is gone, there will be nothing but love, which is why most people, when they're about ready to die, do not focus on large screen televisions or their stock portfolios. I have been with loads of people when they're about ready to die, and almost none of them say, I wish I would have gotten 6 more large screen televisions. I have never heard it. They do regret, however. They regret or rejoice in how much they did or didn't love. Love is the one thing that lasts forever. Love is the meaty substance of the Christian message, the Christian sandwich. It's what's given you life. It is what constantly redeems your life, forgives you, releases you, and sets you free for the future. It propels you forward and will pave and provide for you a secure and joyous future. And you do well, therefore, not to forget the deep, great taste of love. But don't think for one moment that this love stuff is easy, or that it's simply about warm, mushy, gushy feelings. Paul makes that quite clear when he talks about love being patient and kind, not envious, boastful, or arrogant, or rude. Love, while it might include feeling, and I hope it includes feeling for you, while it includes feeling, is not limited to feeling. In fact, more often than not, true love looks like action. Country music star Clint Black says love is something we do. Love involves, according to Paul, growing up, maturing, admitting that we don't know it all, that we know only in part. Love entails getting beyond the self Love is not only the truth we live in, it is our calling, which brings us to consider the bread that is around the portobello mushroom or the chicken or whatever you got there in the middle. Our first reading from Jeremiah is the story of the call of Jeremiah to be a prophet. It is a story that, by the way, follows a typical biblical call story pattern. God calls Jeremiah, one he's had his eye on since before he was born. He calls him and tells him that he's got a job for him. And Jeremiah responds like all the other prophets respond by saying he's not worthy, he's only a young boy. And God counters Jeremiah by inviting him to get over that limitation. We must admit that with God, our perceived limitations, our sense of lack, is only God's dough for kneading. And then God tells Jeremiah that he will be with him. That's typical too, which is encouragement to him not to be afraid of the people who will certainly oppose him. And then getting physical, which happens in a lot of these call stories, God touches the mouth of Jeremiah, just as God will touch the mouth or the lips of Isaiah next week, because Jeremiah's mouth will be the means by which he does his job as a prophet. His work involves the mouth and involves words. Now, all seems well and good at this point. But then God gives Jeremiah the job description. I appoint you to pluck up and pull down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. In other words, the prophet's job is tough. He's got some hard work to do, some opposing to be involved in, and he's going to unsettle many. He's going to tick a lot of folks off. And by the way, this indeed is the role of the prophet, which is why it is always a lonely office. Real prophets are not people pleasers. They are truth tellers, and the truth can hurt. Yes, it's love that calls the real prophets, but love isn't easy. Something that Jeremiah soon will find out. He will become very unpopular where he lives, and he will face all kinds of opposition. Well, Jesus is a lot like Jeremiah, Luke would have us know. So we're ready to consider the under piece of bread under our sandwich today. Jesus comes to his hometown. It's a great story. And reads the scriptures in the synagogue and preaches a very short sermon, indicating that Isaiah's words about good news for the poor, release to the captives, and forgiveness of debt, the year of our Lord's favor, has come to fulfillment in his person and in his life. Now, initially, the hometown crowd is just enamored with the hometown boy. Wow, hasn't he done good? We're so proud of him. But things go south when they asked Jesus to do in Nazareth, his home village, what he did in Capernaum. Now, I just think with Jesus, if he would have just not had to said anything, if he would have just said, it's so nice to be with you back home, the hometown again, it's so good to be here, and you guys are so wonderful, you helped me grow up, and it was just superb. If he would have just stopped with that, we wouldn't have had the problem. But no, he's got to speak. He's got to speak like a prophet. Jesus confronts the hometown folks by saying that true prophets don't do well in the place they come from. True prophets are often rejected by the folks who are well acquainted with the nitty-gritty details of the prophets' lives, especially in their growing up years. What really angers the hometown folks is the way Jesus focuses their attention not on themselves, but on some foreigners. Shouldn't good news for the poor start with them, his hometown? But Jesus' focus is someplace else. He mentions Elijah the prophet as one who went only to a poor widow, where? In a foreign land. And then he says that the only one who was cleansed by the prophet Elisha was a man named Naaman, and he was a foreigner. He was from Syria. His focusing on foreigners gets them really perturbed. So perturbed that they want to hurl him off the cliff, and as I said before, they want to stone him. Wow, I guess Jesus is right. The hometown prophets aren't accepted in their hometown. Love isn't easy. Love calls us beyond our tendency to collapse the world into one that is just about me and my kind. I got to tell you what, though, that collapsing is totally normal and natural. You got to get that. It's natural and normal to be preoccupied simply with yourself and your own little club. That's very natural and normal. But Jesus, as a prophet, is calling us to get beyond what is natural and normal. He is calling us into a bigger world. Love has a bigger playground than the one that is outside of your house. With Jesus, it is not sufficient to say, well, we'll just hunker down and take care of our own. Now, of course, it's important to take care of your own, very important. But the prophet Jesus will not let us be satisfied with a world that is defined as us and them. The world of God, as it is revealed in Jesus, is always a matter of us. Immigrants, refugees, new folks in our families, new people in our church are not them. They are us. Which is why soon we in this congregation will be involved in the work of settling Afghan refugees. Why we've been active participants in the Family Promise movement, providing shelter for homeless families. Followers of Jesus hear the call of love to move beyond our narrow little worlds and our narrow agendas. But I got to tell you this, some people don't like that. They don't, I know that. Nothing unsettles people more than the call to get beyond themselves. A pastor friend of mine, as I communicated this message via Facebook the other day, said to me that one of her members left her church because this member said, "You keep talking about us forgiving our enemies." Yeah. Yeah, we do. And we do not because we really like it, but because this is what Jesus taught, and this is what he claimed means to belong to his way of living. Forgiveness of the folks we'd rather not forgive. Our world is turned upside down by the prophets, who do the challenging work of plucking us out of the small little worlds we like to live in, of destroying the self-preoccupation that is so normal and natural to us. The real prophets will oppose us. And I don't get this because I don't do this very well, they don't judge life on the basis of their popularity. Now, I got to say this, though, before I conclude, because I'm a little nervous in saying that. Don't think that all oppositional energy is prophetic energy. You got to get this. And I've been thinking a lot about this during the pandemic. Some people just love being oppositional. Some folks just thrive on not being liked, not fitting in. Sometimes it proves what they've thought all along about themselves. I guess I really don't fit in. I'm not worthy to belong. And some folks actually get points, often in their own minds, for not fitting in. I'm not like everybody else who just goes along with those who are being told what to do. I'm independent of all that. Not all oppositional energy is prophetic energy. Sometimes opposition is just a matter of crabbiness that is rooted in self-preoccupation. The opposition that we experience in Jeremiah and Jesus, the slices of bread for our sandwich today, is not crabbiness rooted in self-preoccupation. This is prophetic energy that feeds off the love that is at the center of our story. It's a love that is not satisfied when love is not lived out. It's a love that has to pull up and pluck out and pull down that which gravitates against love. It's a love that gets in our faces and says, it's just not about you and your people. It's about all of us, and especially those of us who are forgotten or left on the fringes. We get a sandwich today, and the best sandwiches from my perspective, my wife makes really good ones, by the way. The best sandwiches are those that bring together the middle with what surrounds the middle. It is all about love. Love is the substance of our message, but love isn't always easy. Love is hard. Love will bring opposition, and love will be relentlessly after us until we finally give in to love. Amen.